in theory, freelancing is a very simple concept. You have a skill, somebody needs your skill, they pay you for the skill, that's all. But why does it seem so hard to start a freelancing business? And you probably clicked into this video for this very reason. You want to either start a freelance business or you have already started a freelance business, but you're struggling with all the different kinds of questions that new freelancers have. Like, how do you price yourself? Do you need to register a business? Where do you get clients? What do you do to invoice clients? Do you need contracts? Stuff like that. If you don't know me, my name is Dina and I have been full-time self-employed for the past 4 years. And out of these 4 years, a lot of the times I was a freelancer. I had a calligraphy and art business where I was offering my calligraphy services to individuals, companies. I did on-site calligraphy. I taught public and corporate calligraphy workshops, and I even sold home paintings to realtors, and I'm like not a painter at all. I've also dabbled a little bit in social media freelancing. Right now, if you're trying to start a freelance business and you're trying to get into writing or graphic design, video editing, being a VA, being a website designer, or an artist or a calligrapher, this video will apply to you, even though my main freelancing business was my calligraphy and art business. Because all freelancers need to have similar things in place. You need a way to get clients, you need to have a portfolio, and invoice your clients and collect payment. The first thing you need to do when you're starting a freelance business is get all the business registration legal stuff out of the way. So depending on where you are located and how businesses are structured in your country, you can start a sole proprietorship or you can start a corporation. If you're in the US, there is also something called an LLC that you can look into. These kinds of business structures are very different, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you need to do some research on this stuff, okay? And if you're feeling really lost, you can ask some business owners in the same area where you live on how they structured their business. If you're in Canada like me, there's actually a very helpful website that can help you start your sole proprietorship or register your corporation, and that is called Owner. I used Owner to register my corporation, and it was such a simple process, so you can check it out below if you reside in Canada. The next step in starting a freelancing business is to create some kind of portfolio. I will say though, the majority of people probably need to have a portfolio, but if you have a lot of connections or you have big guts, you might not even need a portfolio. So first of all, what is a portfolio? A portfolio is basically a place where you are showcasing your work so that your potential clients can see what is it that you do, what is the style, what are the kinds of designs, and they can use this information to decide if they want to work with you. Probably the most common way to create a portfolio is to have some kind of social media presence and a website. I know there are websites like Fiverr and Upwork, like these are freelancing websites, but I actually think those websites are not the greatest if you want to have a really sustainable full-time freelancing business, because there are so many people on those kinds of websites charging really low prices, and there's a lot of competition. Okay, you might have a lot of questions at this point about what social media to use, how do you actually build a portfolio. So I have some specific tips for your portfolio that I'm going to share at the end of this video, but I want to give you an overview of the steps you need to take first. The next step after you have built some kind of portfolio is to get clients. Obviously, there's a difference between inbound marketing and outbound marketing. So you can look at it this way. With inbound marketing, the customer comes in to you. Maybe they're finding you through your website or your social media, but they're the ones contacting you and asking about your services. With outbound, you are going out to look for these prospects, for these customers. You are going to networking events, you are reaching out to people, you are cold emailing people. So those are the two types of ways to get clients. You can think about how you can get people to come to you, that's inbound marketing, and how you can go out and find your clients. At the start of a freelancing business, it's probably less likely you're gonna have people come to you directly unless they know what you're doing and you've been doing it for a longer time. So the best strategy is to do outbound marketing and do outbound sales. You are going out to find your clients. With outbound, you might feel like it's really scary to email somebody that you don't know and you don't know what to say, but it doesn't have to be this way. You can totally learn how to send really effective emails. A couple years ago, when I started to sell paintings and do on-site calligraphy and corporate calligraphy workshops, it was really scary for me to contact people. I did a ton of research, and actually I remember coming across one of HubSpot's blog posts that came with some email templates. So I found them for you, and in my video description I have a link to 25 proven sales email templates. One of them that I've used a ton in my business is the cold email template that starts off with some recent information that you saw about them. So you can see this email starts off with, recently I noticed that you've company accomplishment. Congratulations. And this works because it shows that you're paying attention to the prospect. A really good good way you can apply this to Instagram is actually replying to somebody's Instagram stories, so it doesn't seem so salesy and like you planned the whole thing. It just feels more organic that something prompted you to reach out. Another one I love is this one, where you send a really short email asking to talk to the right person. It doesn't come off as too salesy, and it's really easy for the other person to deal with you, and I have used this a ton. Of course, with these templates, you should change the tone depending on how you actually sound in email or DMs, but just reading through these templates and explanations of why certain things work in certain emails is going to help you a lot. So check them out below, and thank you to HubSpot for always looking out for us and providing us with these free resources. Other than cold emailing and cold DMing people, another really great way you can do outbound sales and outbound marketing is actually to go to networking events. Networking is probably the method that I would say has worked the best for me, but it is a long-term strategy. You are not going to get results right away because you really need to build these connections with people, and then you meet their friends of their friends, and it's going to take some time for people to know you and trust you and give you referrals and think about working with you. So you don't have to go to events that are like specifically networking events. There's a ton of different ways you can network. Obviously, there's in-person events, and I would say my favorite ones to attend and the ones where I've made the best connections are the ones where it's like women in business or entrepreneurs. Okay, even events where it's not really businessy stuff. So for example, like a jewelry making workshop, or if you're going to the gym to do yoga or a Zumba class, you can network there. You don't have to go to some kind of business event to network. What networking really is just basically making friends. Networking is not a one-way relationship. It is truly like you having business friends, and it's mutually beneficial. So with making friends, it does take some time to get it started, but once you have a good network and you've built this through going out, doing some outreach, outbound work, you will find that you will get more inbound inquiries. Oh, and another tip I have for you is when you are networking, it's actually a really good idea to try to meet people who are trying to do the same thing as you. I know you might think, oh my God, why would I meet them? They're like my competition. But when you meet other people who are like you, so for example, for me, when I was doing my calligraphy business, it was so useful to know other calligraphers because they save my ass so many times. Like for example, if a customer inquired about me doing something, but then I couldn't because I am like not available or something, I just refer the customer to another calligrapher. Or let's say I'm doing a project and I really don't know what calligraphy pen to use, I would just ask my calligrapher friends. So it is so beneficial to know other people who are doing the same thing as you. Even though they're trying to look for the same kind of customer as you, it's just so beneficial to have these connections because they can refer you, they can help you if you need help, you can ask them about specific things. Or for example, like if there's some kind of event, like they might ask you, hey, do you want to go with me? So actually you get access to a lot more knowledge and people. And in general, it's just nice to even just talk about strategies for how to get clients with your business friends who are doing the same thing as you. A really important mindset I had to have when I was doing my calligraphy business was there is enough opportunity for everybody. And I had to have this abundance mindset or else I would just be so scared of meeting anybody. Something I forgot to say is for networking, it doesn't just have to be in-person events. It could also be online networking through using social media like Instagram or LinkedIn, and also attending like online events like Zoom events, stuff like that. Oh, a trick when you're going to Zoom events is like if you can see the participant names, I usually just screenshot everybody and then I go to LinkedIn and then I search them up and then I'll message them. And like you went to the same event, right? So it's really easy to message them and be like, hey, like I was also in this event, like I was just looking at who's there and I found your LinkedIn profile and I see that you do this. Well, actually I do blah, 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 blah. And this is, and then like something interesting, can ask them a question. Really easy to connect with people if you have a prompt. The next step in your freelancing business is once you have your first client, you are gonna do the client work, obviously, right? But I do have a tip for you. So when you're just working with a client, don't just do the work and then at the very end, once you're 100% done with the work, show the client. What I actually do and what I found works the best is actually to do 30% of the work first, show the client. You just like send a picture or send kind of like it depends on what you're doing, right? It could be an outline, it could be a draft of what you're doing. Let's say I'm doing a calligraphy piece. I would send the draft in pencil of like the layout and everything, send it to the client after I'm done 30% and just show the client, hey, I'm working on this. This is what it looks like so far. And this is great because in the initial stages, before you spent so much time doing the client work, you can get feedback on your work. Most of the times the client will come back and be like, oh my gosh, this is great. Or like, could you just fix this one little thing? And then you are saving so much time if you're able to like fix something before you've actually finished the whole thing, and then you might have to like start all over. So I show the client at the 30% mark, and then also around when I'm like 70 to 80% done, like when I'm almost done the thing, I like sending it to them and just saying, hey, I am almost done. This is what it's looking like so far. I'm just gonna do the finishing touches and then we're done. So with art specifically, I liked having like 2 check-ins before I finished the whole thing. But I would say it depends on what you are doing. And if the client is so busy, then maybe you don't want to check in so many times. But I think it is helpful, especially at the start of working with a new client. You want to check in more. And then after you've established a relationship and maybe you're working on multiple projects, then maybe later on you don't have to check in as much because they know what you're doing. Next step after you finish the client work is to invoice the client. You can also collect a deposit before you start on the client work. So that is also very common as well, but you will have to find a way to invoice your client. Depending on where you live, that will dictate what kind of invoicing software you can use. But for me in Canada, and I think generally for North America, there is Wave, Stripe, and PayPal. So these are all free to use. They just have the standard 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction fee. This is standard across the board. They're gonna have that fee, but there are also a lot of other invoicing platforms. Like for example, if you use an accounting software like QuickBooks, then you can also use your paid accounting software to collect payments. So congratulations on getting your first client and getting paid. Now I'm going to answer some commonly asked questions about becoming a freelancer. The first one is, Dina, how do you build a portfolio if you have no clients? It's like a chicken and egg thing. Like, how can I have a portfolio if I don't have a first client? So to give you an example, in my calligraphy and art business, I really wanted to do on-site calligraphy. On-site calligraphy is where you are hired by brands and event organizers or stores in the mall to sit there and make custom calligraphy gifts or like custom cards for customers that come in. And I just thought this was like so cool. But the thing is, how could I get these things if I have no experience, if I don't have pictures of me doing on-site calligraphy, if I haven't worked with any stores before? So what I actually did was I searched for charity events in Vancouver and I reached out to a bunch of charity events and said, hey, I'm a calligrapher, like I can do on-site calligraphy for free, like I'm gonna provide all the paper and everything. And I actually did a couple of those at the start and I got some really great pictures of me interacting with people, and I used this to build my portfolio. Nobody has to know that this was not a shop, this was not you being hired, and eventually I got hired to do some really cool on-site calligraphy events. Another example is when I had the idea to sell home paintings to realtors. I'm not a painter, but I thought, wouldn't it be cool? Let me just try this business idea out. So I reached out to a couple realtors and then I said, hey, I'm trying this new thing. Do you want like a free painting for your next house sale? And so I did like maybe 2 or 3 of them. And then I had these paintings of homes that I could have in my portfolio and on my social media. And then realtors actually started to ask me if I could do these paintings for them. And in the end, I made $500 from painting when I'm not even a painter. So what I'm saying is, if you don't have experience, go out and build yourself a portfolio through doing free events, free work, or you could literally just make samples of your work at home. I know there's always like a debate going on between should you do free work or should you not? Do you need to charge for your value? But I think at the very beginning, if you don't have a portfolio, you kind of like, you need a way to start off. And the best way, the easiest way to do that is to do some free work. You can't do free work forever, obviously. Next struggle that a lot of freelancers have is not knowing how to price themselves. And I struggled with this a lot at the beginning too, because I thought, I haven't been doing calligraphy for like 5 years. I've only been doing it for a couple months. How can I charge this price? And there was a lot of imposter syndrome and self-doubt as well. The first thing is, do not charge what you would be making at a 9-to-5 job working 8 hours a day. Because as a freelancer, when you split up your day, you are not working on client work every single hour of the day for 8 hours, right? Maybe you are only doing 1 or 2 hours that day. The rest of the time you are networking, you are working on your social media, you're doing activities where you're not getting paid. So with freelancing, your rate is always going to be way higher than your hourly rate in a typical 9-to-5 job. When I first started freelancing, I found this really great resource by womenwhofreelance.com. They got a lot of freelancers to submit what they charge. And honestly, this is so interesting to look at. And you can see by industry, how many years people have been working, and you can see what they are charging. You'll see there are some that are like $20, some that are $100, $200. So with freelancing rate, it can range a lot. Oh yeah, and then with Upwork or with Fiverr.com, some freelancers are charging like $5 or $10 an hour, right? So when you're coming up with your pricing, there are several factors to consider. You also don't want to charge too low, or else you'll be bringing the entire industry down. That's why with my calligraphy business, I actually talked to a lot of calligraphers around my area about what they charge. For example, for like on-site calligraphy, the going rate is like minimum, I would say $100 all the way up to $250, depending on what you're doing. Like if it's a really specialized skill, like engraving, where you need more tools, you need more skill, then you would charge higher. If it's doing calligraphy on paper cards or something, then maybe 100, 150. So that is the range I would stick to, and it is so useful. Remember, I said making friends with people who are doing the same thing as you is so useful because you can also ask about pricing. It's not good for one person to charge so high, one person to charge so low, and then maybe that customer is reaching out to two people. It's best to stay within the range within your industry. Another reason why I like the networking method so much is because a lot of the times, like, your potential customer has a lot of options of who they want to work with. For example, I'm looking for a video editor, and I'm sure there's thousands of video editors online, but the most recent one that I'm working with is somebody that I actually know in real life. And even though I'm paying a little bit more than what I want, I don't mind that because I really like this person, I enjoy working with this person, and I know that their quality of work is going to be good. So you'll find that some people are flexible on price if they really like you. Ooh, and another trick I have for reaching out to people and putting yourself out there on social media is actually, like, okay, if you don't really have business connections, what you can do is when you're just scrolling on your social media like Instagram or Facebook, you can reconnect with your old friends, like for example your high school or your college friends, your acquaintances. And the easiest way to do this is, like, let's say you are just scrolling and then you see somebody posting about something and you think, oh, this is kind of interesting. Like maybe somebody posted something about their dog and you haven't talked to them in years, but a really easy way you can get reconnected is actually to reply to whatever they posted and be like, just ask a really simple question like, oh my gosh, your dog is so cute. Like, oh, I actually just got a dog myself. Like, obviously it depends on like if you can find something similar or something interesting, and then you'll be able to start a conversation that way. And then if you feel like you really want to connect with this person, like you actually really want to reconnect as friends, then you could have a coffee chat, go out for lunch or something. And then when you're talking to them more, like they're obviously going to ask you, hey, what's new with you? Then you can share about your new business with them. And the thing is, all of us, we all have like at least 100 people in our network, right? So when you reconnect with your old acquaintance, you are opening up the door to 100 more people. So let's say I'm trying to do graphic design and then I tell my acquaintance, hey, I just started this graphic design business. And then maybe like 2 weeks later, she's talking to her other friend, and then the other friend needs some graphic designer for something. And then she's like, oh my gosh, well, I was just talking to my friend Dina, she just started a graphic design business. So don't underestimate the value of your current connections. So I know this was a lot of information that I just gave you, but I really want you to take it slow. Starting a business is a process and it will get easier the more you work on it. Right now, if you're feeling lost about invoicing and contracts, I do talk a lot more about that in this video. It is an older video though, it's kind of cringy, but it's still very informational. So watch that next if you want to learn more about invoicing and contracts as a freelancer.